All right, course one, chapter one, we're in lesson part two, and we're in part B of that lesson. Today, actually tomorrow when you come to class, we're going to be having some fun with base 10 blocks. We're just going to explore, and we're going to explore dividing decimals by whole numbers. We're going to take story situations, and we're going to use base 10 blocks all day to complete some work and kind of get pretty comfortable with what's happening with division and with decimals. All right, so let's just kind of brief look at this definition of dividing decimals. So dividing decimals is similar to dividing whole numbers. You can also use base 10 blocks to divide decimals by whole numbers. Okay, so we'll use base 10 blocks to model the dividend. We'll separate the blocks into groups represented by the divisor. We'll begin separating with the ones, tenths, and hundredths. Replace any ones with tenths or tenths with hundredths if needed. And then the quotient is the number in each group. So kind of basically going back to what we know about division from last year. In division we have the dividend in the inside. We have the divisor, kind of how many groups we're making, and then we have the quotient. And remember, we can relate these back to multiplication because the dividend is the product in multiplication, and the divisor is a factor, and the quotient is a factor. So we can say a factor times this factor will equal the product, or we can take the product and make that the dividend divided by the divisor, and we'll get the quotient. So that's kind of how all of those vocabulary words play together. So it's very similar to what we did when we first started multiplying a decimal by a whole number. And what we're going to do is just flip it around and do that with division. So instead of looking at this crazy looking page, I'm going to flip to this page and kind of remind you what we were talking about. So we took our base 10 blocks and we changed the meaning of the base 10 blocks to help us kind of understand decimals. And we said that a flat is now 1. Okay. If we broke up a flat into longs, each long is a 1/10. Okay, 1 out of 10. It takes 10 tenths to make a whole. Then within our tenths, if we broke those up into 10 more, that we would have be 100th, or 1 out of 100, because it takes 100 of these to make one whole. Okay? It takes 10 of these to make one whole. Right? So kind of looking at our decimal that way. So on the beginning of the page, it had a story situation for us with money. Jeff and 2 of his friends spent $3.63 on 3 bottles of water. How much does 1 bottle of water cost? Okay, so they're spending $3.63 on 3 bottles of water, and we want to know how much does each cost. Okay, so we're going to divide that because we're getting 3 bottles of water by 3, and we're going to get the total cost. So instead of playing around with the algorithm for division, we're just going to take base 10 blocks. All right, so we need to make, our divisor tells us how many groups we need to make. So we need to make 3 groups. And then we're going to separate 3 and 63 cents. So let's start out with that. So 3 looks like this. So we have 3 holes. And we have 60, oops, I don't want to move that part. Let's move this. 10th, 20th, 30, 40, 50, 60. And then we have 300th. So right here, this is the visual representation of $3.63. So we want to make them into 3 groups. Well, we don't have to break up our holes. We have 3 holes. We always start with the biggest one when we're dividing up. So there's our 3 groups. I'm going to move. Let's move you guys over here. Okay, so now we have an equal amount of longs, and now we're going to take our cubes and separate our cubes. And like we said at the beginning when we were talking about dividing, we want to look at the quotient as the number in each group. So each group should have this equal number because we divided it equally. So looking at one group, we have 1 whole, we have 2/10, and we have 1/100th. We should have that through all of them. So our quotient should be $1.21. So taking that and breaking it all up to find out what we had in the end. So just playing with those base 10 blocks. And that's, like I said before, all you're going to be doing tomorrow. I'm going to give you either a story situation, or I'm just going to give you an equation, and I'm going to ask you to use the base 10 blocks in your group and model what that looks like. Let's move these over to the side here. This is where it's going to get kind of messy. So we'll erase this. Oh, I didn't want to go there. Well, you know what? Let's just flip over in this page. Apologize for this, guys. Let's go to page 48 here. My smartboard isn't working with me the way that I want it to. Sorry about that. All right, here we go. Okay, so another example of using base 10 blocks right up top. Let me zoom in here. Here we go. So what we're trying to find is 94/100ths divided by 2 using base 10 blocks. So on top we have 9/10, and then we have 4/100ths, and we're going to separate those into 2 groups. So we ended up separating, and we ended up with 1/10 left. Couldn't separate it equally, so we broke that 10th into 10/100ths, and then we're able to separate that out, and in each group we had 47/100ths. Okay, so just like we were doing last year when we were taking and dividing a whole number and dividing it by another whole number, you're doing the same thing, but just remembering what the value of these base 10 blocks is and how that relates to decimals. All right, so down here, let's see if I can zoom down. It must be because it's a Monday that this isn't working the way that I want it to. All right, so practice and apply is what you're going to be doing in class tomorrow, and then analyzing your results. All right, let's do a couple of the practice and apply together, and then we'll be ready tomorrow to really discuss, analyze the results. So let's start with the first one. We have 3 4/10 divided by 2. So we'll take 3 wholes and 4/10, and you can just draw it out, and we're going to divide it into 2 equal groups. Okay, so we can move 1/10 and another 10th. We can't take this 10th, so now we're going to break that up into 10, or sorry, this whole into 10/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so now I have a total of 14/10. I should be able to give each one 7. And now to figure out my quotient, first of all, I want to make sure that each group has the same amount, and if they do, then I know I'm sitting good. Then I can just look at one group to tell me what my quotient is. So I should end up with 1 and 7/10. Okay. Moving on, let's do another one. 44 and 2/10 divided by 3. So we have 4 wholes 2/10, and we're going to divide that into 3 groups. Okay. Take and move one here, here, and another one. You can always draw these pictures out. We don't have enough to share this one, so we'll break that into 10. And now I have 12/10. I know that 12 divided by 3 is 4, so each group is going to get 4/10. Okay. Then I'm going to make sure that each group has the same amount, that it's distributed equally. It is. And now I'm going to look at one group to tell me what my quotient is. I have 1 whole and 4/10. Okay. So using the base 10 blocks to figure out your dividend and then to separate into your divisor to find your quotient. All right, that's what we're going to do tomorrow in class. Come with questions if you're a little confused. Maybe practice a few of these on your own at home if you want, and then be ready to look at some of the work here and put into story situations. Thank you for watching the video and have a good night.